Hi, you guys, and welcome back to the podcast.
We are the Carwells.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Sarah, and we are, as you know, Airbnb interior designers and investors.
Guys, is this y'all's first time ever being on a podcast?
Yeah.
And Chelsea's and Jeannie's.
Wait,
Yeah.
really?
Are you not forgetting us?
We feel so honored.
Wow. Well, this is already my favorite podcast yet. So, well, for our listeners who are returning to listening to this podcast today, we are doing something wildly different than any other podcast we've listened to or created thus far. This one has absolutely nothing to do about real estate or with real estate or Airbnb. This one's super personal to Emily and I. So we've never cried on the internet, and wish us luck getting through this one without having a tear or two. But we like keeping it real with y'all, and today you get to meet our big why behind everything that we do, our friends. So we have a girl gang, so I will introduce you to everyone here. And a lot of you have seen over the last few months that our girl gang has just gone through it. So we are going to talk about going through it with one of our friends that has passed away. We're going to use this as a little therapy session that you guys get to take a peek into. But also we've turned this pain into something that we are trying to do something good and productive with it. So we are part of an LLS fundraiser that we are raising money for what our friend passed from. So if you have family, friends, significant others who have gone through or currently have cancer, this episode is for you. Without further ado, and before we make it all heavy, let's keep it lighthearted, and I will introduce everyone. So, welcome, Dale.
That was supposed to be sign language for cheering, and then I actually cheered. Woo!
Jazz hands, but voices came out as well. So we'll start with Dale. How about that?
Okay.
Actually, we'll go from oldest to newest. So those of you who are listening already know Emily and I. If you didn't know, the other day I realized that someone who I met in person thought that Emily and I were lesbians, although that is the biggest compliment I think I've ever received in my life. We are not. We are best friends. We're not even sisters.
We do get sisters a lot. We do get sisters a lot.
We get sisters a lot. And then there's Dale. So welcome, Dale. Dale is a year younger than Emily and I, and Dale's grandma and my grandma were best friends. We went to the same high school and then briefly lived together throughout college, and now are still BFFs. And then we went to college. Some days.
On Tuesdays and Thursdays and the occasional Saturday.
When Ethan sends us our checks.
Yes.
Yeah, when Ethan tolerate me.
Blessed.
Yeah. And then we went to college, and I went to art school. So all of you laughing can laugh at all of us going to art school. But I went to art school, and I met three other people that we moved in together. So next on the list is Jeannie. Jeannie, I met my freshman year in college. Hi.
Hello.
She did do the silent wave.
Doing great, sweetie.
And one thing that I'll mention about Jeannie is when we were freshmen, Jeannie, we were like in class and we were considering living together, and Jeannie was like, if you can get my rent below $150 a month, I will move in with you. And I feel like saying that now, like now knowing what rent costs and what it costs to live, I'm like, that is such an insane ask. And somehow we made that work. So all of us lived in apartments where I think the entire time, even when you moved in, Chelsea, all of us were paying like, I guess you had a room to yourself, so you're paying like $300-something a month in rent, but all of us paid like $160-something in rent all 4 years of college.
That was beautiful.
Wonderful. Wish I could go back.
Same.
Amen.
So, with that being said, Jeannie is the Dutch one in the friend group. And then when we were in art college, there was one girl that Jeannie and I both didn't like at all. Thought she dressed too promiscuously and was just slooting around too much. And in turn, she ended up being the absolute missing piece to our puzzle. So hi, Chelsea. Welcome.
Hey. Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting just because Nicole, I think, always liked me, but you two definitely didn't, and the feeling was mutual.
Also,
Thank God you're Nicole.
Sarah, how dare you say that somebody dresses promiscuously and is slutting around?
Okay, but you didn't see it. You didn't see the dresses.
I had one dress. This all boils down to one dress I wore that was a little tight and a little short. And should I be wearing it to school? No. But
Second day of school.
if you got it, what are you going to do?
Look, it was just exclusively out of jealousy over here. Honestly, I wish I had the confidence to wear it.
I'm all for it, Chelsea. I'm on your side.
Oh, I would have hated me. I would have absolutely hated my guts if I were you too. So no worries.
And we did.
We did. Well, it all worked out in the end because now we're all best friends and we've traveled the world together. We've done a ton together. And the 6 of us, inclusive of Nicole, just have had the best friend groups in the entire world. I know that we've had a lot of people who have been like inspired by our friend group and just how we've kind of stuck with each other through thick and thin. So for our listeners, this one's super special. This is our little family that you get to take a peek into. So today, really, our goal is to talk through what it was like going through cancer with our friend for the last year and a half, in hopes that some of you will connect with it and, I guess amplify the voices of those who are going through it and why this is a cause that we were super excited to get behind as a friend group. So, without further ado, I guess let's get into it. Okay, so if you listen to our podcast, you know that every episode we start with an Airbnb horror story. We were talking about some maybe funny stories of Nicole that we could start this podcast with, and I have one in particular that just like for whatever reason sticks out in my brain every time I think about Nicole. It was on our freshman year spring break, so it was just me, Jeanne, and Nicole, and my dad was on spring break with us. That tells you how conservative my parents are. So my dad goes on spring break with us, and we were in a 2-bed, 2-bath condo in Orlando. And if you know anything about Jeanne specifically, she's the night owl of our friend group and will like do anything to keep us all up all night long, if at all possible. And so I was sleeping in the room with my dad, and Jeanne and Nicole were sleeping in the second bedroom together, and we were going to Disney the next day. And so we were all like, okay, let's go to bed a little bit earlier because the night before we had stayed up all night talking. And so I'm asleep, and all of a sudden I just hear someone screaming. And I'm like, what in the world? So me and my dad wake up. My dad gets out of bed with me, walk over to the girls' room, and we hear Nicole screaming from the bathroom. And so I open the bathroom door, and Nicole had just got done going to the bathroom, and she's standing on top of the toilet with her shorts pulled up, but her underwear are still like pulled down, freaking out because there's a cockroach in the bathroom that's like crawling up the wall.
Oh my gosh.
So my dad is like in the bathroom, fresh after Nicole got done going to the bathroom, trying to kill this cockroach in the middle of the night. And I just remember that being like one of the most vivid memories of Nicole, where I'm like, how? How did you end up in that situation?
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
This poor girl.
Fear
I'm
of
pretty
bugs
sure we
and
killed it
birds.
with a shoe.
What?
I'm pretty sure we killed it with a shoe.
I know. If she wouldn't have screamed, nobody would have ever known. You guys wouldn't have been busted for being
I
separate.
had a plan. I was fine.
So Jeanne, were you still awake? And like you guys were just still up? Yeah.
Yeah, they spent the whole night talking.
It was a breakthrough night for us. We talked about everything. It was great.
It's impossible to get Jeanne to go to sleep. Like, no matter how much you want to go to sleep, she is keeping you up. So, and Nicole's too nice to be like, Jeanne, leave me alone. I'm going to bed.
I have no regrets, okay?
Yeah, I lived with Jeanne for 2 years in my room. I didn't sleep at all when she was home because we would just talk from our bunks.
Look, you are one of the best conversationalists in the world, but also girls need sleep.
That's what mornings are for.
That's what is it, like 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. is for.
Yeah, that's enough.
Emily, I think you should still tell the Jamal story.
Okay. This is one of my favorite stories to tell people. So when we all lived together, we were, any parents listening to this, turn this off now. We were all underage for most of the time in that first apartment. So instead of going out to party, we would party at our apartment. And so we were partying one night, and Sarah was in Italy. So Sarah wasn't there for this, but Sarah had left her fish behind with us and asked us all to feed it however often it needed to be fed.
It
So we're
totally
all,
got fed.
it absolutely got fed for sure. Um, and this fish was named Jamal with a silent F at the beginning. Don't ask who named it, but somebody named it, so we got to naming him for Jamal. And so we're all just like partying, listening to music. I don't know how our neighbors didn't hate us because we used to listen to music so loud in our apartment when we would party there. And all of a sudden, Nicole is drinking vodka, and she was like, oh my gosh, Jamal should drink with us, like we're leaving him out, he's the only one who's not drinking. And so she goes and pours like a shot of vodka into this fish tank, which wasn't a fish tank, it was like a vase that we had because Sarah
Oh
didn't
my gosh,
want to go
Sarah!
buy, she didn't want to go buy a fish bowl, so we put this fish in a vase. And this is animal abuse, absolutely, so PETA, leave us alone. But so we're all still like, we're too drunk to notice. So like literally 2 weeks later, the rest of us had like every time we remembered, we were putting fish food into this vase, and nobody ever noticed that the fish is just floating in there because he got alcohol poisoning and died. And Sarah comes home from Italy and she's like, what is that smell? And we're like, what are you talking about? Like, we cleaned the apartment, it's totally fine. And she's like, no, something smells really bad right next to the door. And we look over, and literally there's like mold on this fish at the top of his tank. And we were like, oh my gosh, he died because he got alcohol poisoning. But Nicole just wanted him to be involved in the group. So can't blame her for that.
Poor Jamal. R.I.P. for
Poor
Jamal.
And then Justin
And nobody
was
thought to like change out the water. Just keep the vodka in there.
yeah, no, I mean, honestly, none of us wanted an animal in the place. And Sarah was like, Justin got me this fish. And I was like, damn it, Justin, now there's something alive that we have to pay attention to. Like, we don't pay attention to our own lives in this place, let alone a fish. So yeah, that poor fish.
And that poor fish. But honestly, the fish wasn't meant to be if it couldn't hang in that way. If it couldn't handle a little bit of vodka, it just wasn't meant to be our fish.
It's just so bad. I just think about like how it would have reacted immediately to this like alcohol coming into its home. Like, what did it do?
He probably had a good time until he didn't have a good time.
I bet for like the first 20 seconds, he was actually having a good time.
He was partying right along with us.
Yeah.
Or he was just like,
I think he would say it's worth it. Probably that.
and then just turn up.
But I will say that it was one of her best qualities was how nice she was, and she just wanted to include everybody, including animals. Like, never wanted anybody to feel like they were left out of the group.
I love that.
And thus the turnip queen was born.
Oh yes, the turnip queen.
Because Jamal lost his title.
Jamal couldn't hang.
Oh, I think my
Nicole didn't
story.
even live at that apartment with us.
I love that. I think my Nicole story would piggyback that rather well. This is when she was in the hospital, or one of her stints when she was at home. I wanted to make a joke, and true Dale fashion, and I was trying to be very creative and really like in depth. I wanted to get her a gift. And I like had this whole storyline like played out, and I had gotten her like 6 random gifts, like so random. Everything from sunglasses to some like sunscreen to like these sandals to then like these binoculars to literally so random. But I had typed out this whole story on the Amazon lets you send those messages or write a note. So with every gift, I wrote a note, so that the storyline played out. So Nicole, I'm like anxious, and didn't sign my name, so she didn't know it was from me. And so I'm just like anxiously waiting, like days, weeks, and she doesn't say anything. She didn't say anything in our group chat, and so I'm like, crap, like I think I said it was delivered. Like, did I write her address down wrong? Like, I know I didn't. And so I texted her, I was like, hey, how's it going? And she's just like, so good, how are you? What's going on? Blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, so good. And you get any gifts lately? And she was like, no, I didn't. Am I supposed to be? And I was like, so did you get like some binoculars? And she was like, oh my gosh, I got like the most random packages, and I like don't know what it was for. She's like, I think one of my nurses sent it to me, but like I don't get it. And I was like, so that was me. Did you get any like notes with it or any cards? And she's like, no. I was like, okay, cool. So you got like these 6 random gifts. And I don't remember what the storyline was because I was drunk on the toilet when I made it. And so she's like, can you like retell me the story and like send it out to me so I can like understand what you were thinking? I was like, absolutely not. The joke is gone. Send the stuff back to Amazon. Keep the binoculars if you want. But I'm not. I'm over it. She's like, thank you so much for thinking of me. It's like, taking it all the heck.
Just random sending me these random things.
Oh my
She
gosh,
probably was
literally,
like, do I have a stalker? Like, what is going on?
hi, it's me. No, but I'm pretty sure, like, because I had gotten her sunglasses, because I knew she was home. That's what, and it was like springtime or summertime or something, and like being in the hospital is so boring, and like being at home and not being able to do anything is so boring. So I'm pretty sure that I had gotten her binoculars so that she could creep on her neighbors. And then I think I got her sunglasses that were like easily see-throughable so that she could look through her binoculars and then put her glasses on so like people wouldn't know she's looking at them. And then I got her, I think like the cloud slippers, like the cloud slides, because like cloud, like, ooh, walking on a cloud, they're not going to know that you're there. And like, I think I got her a t-shirt, something weird and random, but yeah, it was an epic fail. But she loved it. So yeah.
You got her a starter kit of how to be creepy.
Were you watching the show
101.
You or something when you came up with this?
No, I literally was drunk on the toilet on Amazon. Like, I'm not joking.
Oh my gosh.
So,
All right.
that's,
I think I got her like a squishmallow or something, like that puppy dog squish
I love it.
stuffed animal. I think
Heck
just
yeah.
stuffed animals is like my love language.
It's your thing.
I would agree.
I don't have like a horror story, but I do have a very funny story of Nicole and Sarah actually. And I'm trying, like, there's 3 stories I have in mind, but I'm going to share this one. But it's when we were in Italy and we were, Nicole and I were roommates in Italy because we were studying abroad. And so every weekend we would go exploring a new city. And luckily we convinced Sarah, who had just been the year before, to come visit us. And she was with her brother. And then we also convinced Jeannie to come visit us with Nate. And they were exploring too. And this one weekend was Sarah's birthday weekend. And so we all decided to go. She wanted to do Sorrento and Positano. So we're all in Sorrento. And we end up on this like cliffside campground to stay. And then you have to walk into town. And so, sorry, I'm going to cough again. And so, we all are drinking heavily because it's Sarah's 21st birthday, mind you. And we can all drink in Italy. And so we're all drinking completely blackout hammered. But I do vividly remember us walking back, and it was kind of a hike to walk back. And I actually like found these photos of all of us. Like, do you know how many people we met that day?
So
Like just walking?
so many.
So many different groups of people. We had like I have to go find the photos of all the people that we met. And for whatever reason, it's me and Jeannie and I think Clark or something like that, whoever we were with at the time, walking like up this fucking mountain to get back to our
right in the
campsite.
highway.
It's on the side of the highway. It's cliffside. It's literally cliffside. Like if you fall over, you're falling thousands of feet. And suddenly, I don't know at what point, but suddenly we just see this little Vespa like going by. And Sarah with this guy on it, driving it, and Sarah and Nicole are on the back like starfish. Like and this Vespa is a one-person scooter.
Oh,
They have these two girls just like all the way up. We were so upset because we had to walk the rest of the way, and I have no idea how you met this person or how you just jumped on, but I don't remember meeting this person. He just jumped on and got a ride all the way up. We're like, okay, bye. See you probably never.
I can't believe that Nicole did that with me. Like, literally, we were just, like, probably 100 yards behind you guys, and I was like,
Yeah.
we should try hitchhiking on my birthday. And she was like, well, it is your birthday. And I, like, just stuck out my thumb, and, like, 4 seconds later, this one-seater Vespa pulls up, and I'm like, Nicole, get on. And she, like, didn't say anything. She just got on, and I was like, straight. Like, this guy, we didn't speak the same language. I just was like, go straight. I'll
I just remember her legs on the side, just like.
I feel like there were so many situations like that. There were so many situations where like we would be doing something reckless, and Nicole's like not a naturally reckless person, but she was like, I'm in it if you guys are in it, and she would just like dive in and do the crazy thing, and I was like, we're gonna get hurt one day because of the rest of us being reckless.
Yeah, that was also simultaneously the day that I had my passport, ID, all my credit cards, $700 cash, like literally everything stolen. So we were like in Italy. I had absolutely no money, no way to travel back to the States. Just like trying to make the best out of my 21st birthday.
You're so right, because that's so out of character for her. But like in the moment, if it's something that's gonna make you happy, she was such a good friend that way. Like she would just join in whether she felt comfortable or not.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
absolutely.
Hold on for dear life.
Mm-hmm.
If I were smart, I would have put her between me and the other person, but no.
No, you stuck her right on the back.
Barely hanging on. I can't believe she didn't fall off.
I know.
Oh.
Outrageous. Well, I guess that's a good segue into kind of the role that Nicole played in our friend group. Does anyone want to start with what they think the role that she played in our friend group was, or I guess your perspective on it?
I would say, wow, Jeannie. I would say Nicole for me in the dynamic in our group was hype woman, feel good woman, love you woman all of the time. Like it was whether we were complete baddie and doing stuff off the wall, if it was emotional, if it was singing and dancing, if it was adventuring, if it was whatever, she was just let's make people feel like $1,000,000 and have fun doing it. And no matter, and like always like genuine with her intentions and her feelings and her encouragements, which was so like you knew what you were going to get when you went to Nicole. And that is to me so special. Like, you know, if you need some feel good love, you could go to her and she would make you feel like there was nobody else there and you were the only one in front of her and the only one doing whatever you're doing and you were $1,000,000. Like that was the best thing. Like even if you're singing redneck woman sounding like a dying walrus, she was back there hyping you up and like fist bumping and like all the things. And it was you just didn't make you want to stop. Like you just wanted to keep going and play an encore for her because she made you feel like you were awesome. So that was my view of how Nicole thought or was.
I will second that exact same thing because I was with Nicole the day that I made probably one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my entire life. Sarah was there too, but she just wasn't in the tent with me. And I made like actually probably one of the like most reckless decisions I've ever made. And the next morning I'm like telling Nicole all about it and we're talking about it. And Nicole was this very sweet, kind, innocent person. And so she instantly could have just been like, Emily, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. I can't believe you would ever do that. And I don't even think I would have blamed her for it because I was judging myself like that at that point in time. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. That was so stupid. Like, I don't know, like a million things could have gone wrong. And she was just like, oh my gosh, get a girl. Like, you're fine. And I was like, no, I'm not, Nicole. But she was like not letting me feel bad about myself, even though I just made one of the stupidest decisions that anybody could ever make. She was just like hyping me up. And I loved that about her. And I was like, thanks for not making me feel disgusting right now because you absolutely
we wouldn't blame you if you did.
No, yeah, I wouldn't have blamed her 1 second if she did.
Oh my God, I think we all tested her patience so much because I don't know if Nicole would have naturally done some of the things that we like forced her into, but I don't think she would have regretted a single moment of any of it, whether it aligned with like her or not, but she was always willing to just stand behind you with whatever decision you made or make sure that you felt okay afterwards.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like one interesting
and like
thing.
supported and loved.
Yeah. I think too, one interesting thing about Nicole was that like when like in our friend group, right, out of the 6 of us, like Nicole was one of the more risk averse ones, right? But in her family, she was the riskiest. And in her high school friend group, she might have even been the riskiest. And like people thought that she was like crazy for some of the adventures that she would go on with us. And so I just think it's like super interesting that like in different groups you can play different roles, and like she fit so perfectly into ours, but she always was like the voice of reason as well. She was always the one that was like, maybe we should like take a beat here, like maybe this isn't such a good idea. And it was like always necessary, right? She was never like trying to rain on the parade at all. She just always was the one that was like, 2 seconds, like let's take 2 seconds to reassess this situation. And we definitely needed that at that point in our lives.
Yeah, I would say even as we got older too, she like became that, like she was like when we were planning your guys' bachelorette party, she just like took charge and she just wanted to make everything feel the most special possible. Like her and I were texting all day long to make sure that all the things that we ordered and all the things that we planned were going to make it like the absolute best bachelorette party that anybody could ever have. And I'm like not somebody who like reaches out and like talks to people that I don't know. So like Chelsea's friends that I didn't know, Nicole was like, don't worry, I got it. We're going to like get them on board and we're going to get all this information. And she just wanted to make it like unforgettable for you guys. And I just think that
Which it was.
Oh my God, it was.
And
was
she just did
best.
such a good job.
The
Yeah. And she just like, and then when we got there, it wasn't that she was high strung. She was like, no, now that we're here, it's all planned, it's done. Now let's party and like have a good time. And so I just, yeah. It was so fun.
That was such a fun weekend. That was like when worlds collide for me, just because you had never met my friends on my side before. But that was so fun. And I remember her like she's very scheduled. Like and she's this way with work too, but if you give her a project, she's going to excel. Like it's going to be perfect. It's going to be what you would want. Oh my gosh. It was so great.
Yeah, that weekend was the best. That weekend was super great. I just remember, like, also because you and I were sharing a bachelorette party and it was Pride weekend in Chicago, it just, like, elevated everything because you've got these, like, 2 girls that are both dressed in white that are both marrying men, but it doesn't appear that way, and you've got all these other girls that are, like, celebrating them, and so we just were, like, the absolute talk of the town. And I just
At least we
like,
felt that way.
Yeah, right. Don't care if that's true or not. But I just feel like the night that we all decided to wear wigs, like Nicole just like stepped into a whole new version of herself with that wig on. Like she just went from being like her regular confident self to just like, I cannot be touched in this pink wig. And I'm just like, why did you dye your hair that early? Like, that was a version of you that the world deserved to see more of.
Oh my gosh, totally agree. She always said that she regretted not taking more photos in that outfit because we really only had photos in front of the restaurant of all of us, and everyone dressed so fun, and it was just like it was
I'm
my
honest.
one thing I wanted at my bachelorette. I was like, we're wearing wigs and we're dressing ridiculously, and
Yeah,
she
I'm
was
surprised we
super
made it to
confident.
dinner.
I know.
Honestly, I'm surprised we even made it to dinner because we got off the boat and we all had to go back and get ready to go to dinner. And like, I'm
Yeah.
seasick. Chelsea, I think you were seasick. We're
Yep.
like almost vomiting
Yeah.
everywhere.
We're
And
like
we're like,
sitting at
but
dinner
we
like,
are
I'm not gonna
going.
puke, I'm not gonna puke, I'm not gonna puke.
I know. I like had to braid my hair to get it up in the wig and I couldn't braid my hair because I was so drunk. And so I'm like slapping my wig on. I tie a bandana up. I'm like, this is just it. And I'm just surprised that we even made it to dinner, but I'm really glad we did because I look back on the videos of like the drag show and stuff and it was so fun that night, that whole night, even though it wasn't like everybody's cup of tea. I understand that like drag shows aren't. It was just so fun to be in something so different than what we always did when we were all together.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I have this
Yeah. I
video
feel
of
like
Andrea where oh go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'll finish mine real fast. But I just remember like it really was kind of everyone's cup of tea except for my brother's, and then my brother was on the end, right where like the drag shows, like whoever the person was that was coming out was like dancing. It was always on my brother, which made the experience just like elevated so high for me. I was like, this is amazing.
It was like your brother and Clark, right? They were just loving those two boys. I have this picture, I have this video of Andrea who's kind of on that side too, and like one of the ladies walks by and she's just got like the biggest dumper. It's just amazing. And she's like looking at her, and then she looks back at the camera and she's like, it's so funny. I'll have to send it to you guys, but it's just like so innocently like,
Oh,
it's
so good.
We're having fun.
Oh, oh.
Okay, I'm gonna ask.
Dang. And I also think about, I want to add one more because I also think about Sarah, your wedding. Nicole felt like absolute dookie
Oh.
butt. She had bronchitis. And so like she flew down with Doug and I, and so we're flying down and she is a hot mess express, but won't say anything and like eating a whole bag of Halls and it's not working. And so we like get to the Airbnb and she still feels like poop. And like the wet like doesn't want to touch alcohol, feels terrible, like so miserable, but she was like showed up, she showed out, she was ready to rock, and ready to just love on her people, which is something that I feel like she was, no matter daytime condition whatever, she was just ready to love her people unconditionally and like show her support. So like I felt like that's one moment that like stands out so much to me, where she's like, some people would completely bail and say sorry and feel like crap. And she was like, nope, I'm gonna grin and bear it. And that was so, to me, that was so beautiful. And it wasn't even my wedding. Like, thank you for coming for her.
Well, yeah, and now looking back, like it wasn't bronchitis, right? It was cancer. Like that it's
Yeah.
wild to think that like we didn't realize that that's what it was until literally 2 years later. But yeah, that was the absolute start of this
Hmm.
entire thing, which is like, wild to think about. She's like, suffering from cancer for the first time ever, or really having symptoms of having cancer for the first time ever, and is just like absolutely hell-bent on being part of my wedding.
Well, it like even like
Yeah.
years later, obviously, our girls' trip that June, right before she like got diagnosed, we hiked for like 4 hours as a group, and we did so
Oh
much
yeah.
walking around Seattle that entire weekend. And so I remember because I was in Thailand when I found out about her diagnosis and like all the stuff that happened when they went in to take the biopsy and all that. And I remember being like, what? Like, there's no way that that's what it is, because we just were hiking and we all were just together and she seemed like totally fine. And so it was so shocking to me that that ended up being her diagnosis, just because we were all so active and it didn't seem like anything was bothering her at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Hmm.
definitely remember. That really segues into the next question of in receiving the news that she had cancer, what were your initial thoughts and emotions? And I just remember like getting back from that road trip because there was about a month between that girls' trip and then the rest of my road trip back across Michigan. And then once we got into Michigan, like that summer, Nicole, the month and a half that we were still here, we just spent 100% of the time with Nicole. Like she was always around, and every single time she'd come around, specifically at my parents' house, my mom just kept saying, my mom was like, something's wrong. Like something's wrong with Nicole. Like she shouldn't be breathing that heavy. Like it shouldn't be. Like she just, my mom knew, and my mom kept like putting it in my ear, and I'm just like, no, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's like the dust from working on her house, or like, you just like never anticipate that news at our age. And so I remember getting that news, and I remember being in Grand Haven specifically. I had like just gotten a pronto pup. I'm like sitting on the side of the hill in Grand Haven with a pronto pup in hand, and I remember receiving that text message, and I remember just like handing my pronto pup to Ethan and just like immediately breaking down and being like, how? Like, how is that? One, how did they miss it 2 years ago when they thought it was bronchitis and it wasn't? And how is it so big? And like, how is it the sweetest person in our friend group that seems so pure? Like, all I just remember it being like super surreal and feeling like why? Out of all the people, why?
For
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. I was touring an apartment when I got it, and I was like, I literally went into the bathroom of the apartment that I was touring, and I was like, there's no way, like that's not a thing that's happening right now. And Tyler was like talking to the guy, and he looks at me, and they were giving us the keys because we were touring it, like doing our like walkthrough tour at the beginning, and they gave him the keys, and he closed the door, and I just lost it. And he was like, what's going on? And I was like, I couldn't even tell him. And then I remember being mad. Like I was sad at first when I got it, but then I remember a lot of like for the past year and a half being mad that it was like happening to her, that something hadn't
Hmm.
happened sooner. And the thing is that's crazy to me is I was so angry, and she was like, every time I would talk to her, she was like so happy. And I remember that
Yeah.
being like a thing that stood out to
Right.
me is I was like, I'm so pissed off right now and so angry at the world that this is a thing that's happening to you, and you are handling it in such a positive way. And I thought that that was just it like spoke so much to who she is as a person and her relationship with God at that time, that she was so positive during it, and I'm just like so angry at the world during it.
Yeah, I would be
Hmm.
angry as well.
Yeah.
I,
For
Yeah, no, I think also for like the people who are listening to this, there was a huge portion of religion that happened in the midst of this. So, like Jeannie and I both grew up super religious and in super conservative homes, and Nicole did not. And so Nicole was going through this like very like religious experience prior to getting diagnosed with cancer and realizing that like she felt really strongly about her relationship with God, and so to be tested immediately in this like real and raw way right after being introduced to God and religion, and then to watch her just like plow through that entire experience like so calmly, so collected, so like ready to fight that battle. I was just like, I do not know how you are like handling this the way that you are. And it's like, even when we talk to Jordan, who, for our listeners, that's another friend of ours who currently has lymphoma for the second time, she's like, look, everyone tells me that I'm like strong, and that's not how I feel at all because I don't have a choice to like go through this, right? Like, strength is not the right word because strength would like suggest that I have an option to not be strong. But I just feel like I don't even know how to describe it another way. It's like, how do you like describe someone who's like going through the absolute pits, like worst possible case scenario, and still the entire time is like mostly concerned about her family, mostly concerned about her friends, mostly concerned about her relationship with God, like not at all concerned about like what's actually happening inside of her body. And I'm just like watching this unfold being like, I don't understand. Like, this is like above human. Like, this is not human-esque of you to react the way that you're reacting.
hmm. So true. I just feel like that was when I remember when I was um we got the text. I was in the gym and I'm running a camp of like hundreds of little kids, and So I have to like keep my crap together and low key have an eye on my phone, other eye on all of these kids running around trying to run this massive program. And I just remember because I was like my second camp of the day and I was like halfway through and I had to finish that camp, have a 30-minute break, and then do a 2 an hour camp after that. And then I was allowed to like feel emotion because I didn't feel like I could show emotion and like trying just to suppress literally everything because not only like was Nicole's information there, but also it was like so triggering because of my mom. And I literally remember finishing power walking like my heart, my life depended on it over to my boss's office. And my one coworker opened the door for me and was like, "Congratulations, Dale, you finished another week of camps," and like held the door open for me and everything, like went for a high five. And I just like started sobbing. And I'm like, I can't talk right now. And I like fly into my boss's office, like slam the door and just like drop to my knees. And my boss was like, um, did a parent like confront you or something? What's going on? And I was like, no, like this is happening, and Nicole is this, and my mom is this, and life is just crazy, and I don't know how to process this. And like, I was like, and I've been suppressing my feelings and all of that. And she was just like, well, you can cry it out. I have chocolate in the cupboard, and we're just going to talk it through. And I'm like, this is not talking through. This is not time to talk through stuff. This is time just to be a hot mess express and then buck up and figure out what we're going to do. And yeah, that was for those listening, I lost my mom in 2020 to a stage 4 liver cancer, and she was given like the 3 months to live diagnosis, and then like died like a month into it, and stayed at home the whole entire time, and my family and I took care of her. And so like that was all like so triggering, knowing like what my sister and I and my dad went through, to think about Ken and Sue and Jake having to go through that and do that, because it is not easy. It is not for the faint of heart. It is not fun. It is not beautiful. It is like gory and gross and sad and devastating. And I just would never wish that upon my worst enemy. So, like, being such an empath, I could like put myself in their shoes and just not want that for anyone. Um, so that was just something that I was so felt bad for them, felt bad for her, felt bad for like how dare I have a pity party for myself that I have to go through not one but two people near and dear to my heart. Like how dare you, God? But then at the same time I'm like, thank you for blessing us with these people. Like it's just such a mind shift, I guess. Like having to go through crap, like cancer sucks. So it's just embracing it and then just flipping that mindset to being like, okay, they're going to be taking away from us so soon. But like at the same time, we were blessed with 29, 54 years, like however many years we got to be with them. So I guess that's been my like biggest takeaway is the mind shift, like just trying to twist it so that you trick yourself into thinking that like life goes on, like we're still here, we have to live, we have to figure out why, even though we're not going to figure out the why, we just have to make the best of it. So yeah, that is mine. And under my laptop is my tissue box. So here we go.
Well, yeah, I think that there's a whole portion of this that, you know, there is the person that is suffering from the disease itself, but it's like how it pours into everyone who is immediately surrounded by the disease. That's like big and scary. And it like, I think you saw that with your mom and you saw that with Nicole, that like, although they're experiencing this thing that they themselves are going through, they also have to deal with like the anxiety of like how it impacts everyone that they love around them after they leave. And like I almost feel like that anxiety for the person that's like
For
going
sure.
through cancer would almost be more overwhelming than the sickness itself. You know, it's like I can't even like fathom like the responsibility like that we feel to like be a great friend to Nicole, but the responsibility that your mom would feel to like care for her husband and her children, or like how we feel about our husbands, or like trying to think about that void being there and you being like responsible for that void, right? And there's like literally nothing you can do about it, but you're like leaving all
Right.
these missing pieces behind. It's like it just affects so much beyond just the person that is sick.
For sure. And like I also just think about too, like as selfish as it is like I to an extent like get kind of where get their shoes. Like I get Nicole's shoes ish. I get Jordan's shoes ish. Like definitely not cancer world, but like heart world. Like I get what it feels like to be like, I want to be the person that's going through the ish. I don't want to be the person watching the ish. Like watching it is so hard because you have no control, you have no say, you have no nothing. But like if you're walking that life, like you're in it, you're the one going through it. Like you can be like, nope, I got this. Like I can do this. I shouldn't be the burden on you. And like I would never want to see like I didn't want to see Nicole go through it. I would never want to see one of you guys go through it. I would rather have like myself go through it so that I can handle it and do it and not have to watch my people. Like I feel like that's the hardest part
Yeah.
Yeah.
for
Yeah, I
sure.
was going to say the first time that it came back that she got re-diagnosed, I had plans to go out with my brother and sister in Grand Rapids, and we went to what used to be Tavern on the Square, but it's called something else now. I don't know what it is now. But I
Mhm.
remember I didn't want to go out anymore. Like I was just not in the mood to go out, and I was like, I'm feeling this like really big sense of guilt for continuing to live my life knowing that Nicole had gotten re-diagnosed. And I was like, I feel guilty for it, but then I'm like, I don't deserve to feel guilty because she's the one going through it. It's like a weird, like emotional thing to go through. And then I was standing in Tavern on the Square, looking around, remembering all the times that we had all gone there together. And I start crying in the middle of a bar at night. And Taylor, my sister, looks at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to be here right now. Like, I feel horribly guilty for just living my life knowing that a friend of mine who is the actual last person on the face of the planet that deserves to go through this is going through this horrible thing." And then I would like talk to Nicole and she would be like, "What's going on in your life? I want to hear, like, what are you doing?" And she was so excited to know that we were living our lives, even though that she was going through this thing. But it was like this
Right.
horribly guilty feeling knowing that I'm at a bar that we used to go to and I'm drinking, which it sounds like the stupidest thing to be doing when your friend is going through cancer and has been re-diagnosed. It feels so dumb to be partying when that happens, right? Like, I don't know, it just made me feel
Mhm.
extremely guilty doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so hard, and I think it was hard for all of us. Um, how do I say, like, touching on what you were saying, Sarah, everyone is here to support Nicole, and she had a flood of communication through the people that she's crossed paths with in her life, and that she obviously Nicole always had like those connections, right? She would meet somebody, anyone, and then they would be Facebook friends or they would keep up with each other along the through their life, where she would, notoriously say happy birthday to every single person she's ever met in her entire life through Facebook. But all of those people were flooding in like, love you, you're so strong, you're so great, you're so positive. And Nicole was, like, truly she was, but there was also this side of her that I think only a couple of us got to see, where, I mean, I remember Jeannie and I FaceTiming her and her being like, you know, I'm strong and I'm unafraid of what it's like to walk through the gates of heaven, but she's like, I have had to look death in the face and realize what that means for me and for you. And I think ultimately she wanted to
You're good.
have more time. But I will always say, out of all of us, she was probably the most prepared to do something like this. She, like, always said before she was diagnosed that she asked God to lay her down completely, to surrender to Him and to understand what it's like to accept, like, His love. And I'm not very religious, so I don't know all of the terms, but um, it was so strategic in her life where was at a place where she could accept that. whether we
Yeah.
could or not, like she did really well.
Mm.
And she did get to like show that true, genuine feeling towards like with us when we had those conversations with her. But you know, people don't, not everyone got to see that. And although like Dale, it's so hard to watch that, it's still like so nice to be the person that
Mhm.
you get to be so close through that whole process, and you get to say at the end of the day that like I was there for you for all of it.
Yeah, for sure. And like at the same time, like I feel like in those moments, like it's so beautiful and like so rewarding. But then it's one of those things where it's so hard to forget this, like everybody told me when my mom passed away that you'll forget all the hard stuff, the bad stuff, you'll just remember the beautiful stuff. And whoever said that is a crock of crap, because like those things still like stick
Yeah,
with you.
for sure.
Like whoever said that, but like yes, you get to see the beauty and like the peace that's in all of that, but like you get to like go through the trenches with them and be that hand, be that like radiant light for them. And like that's, I would never wish it upon my worst enemy, but at the same time, like that is something few and far in between get to experience, and that I in itself helps me have like a different perspective on life and helps my faith feel more steadfast and firm. Just to know that like there's a higher power in my eyes, in my heart, that there's a higher power and there's a reason for everything.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say too, I mean, one, it's like, we watched Nicole go through this entire religious experience. She just, I mean, even prior to being religious, like Nicole had a way of always being most passionate about the things that actually mattered, right? Like she was always most passionate about her friends and her family and vacations and like all the in between moments, which I always struggle with, right? Like I'm such a workaholic that I always get distracted with things that don't matter nearly as much as the things that like, she really prioritized. But I totally agree that like people told me that with my grandma too, right? That like, oh, my grandma passed away from leukemia as well. And they were like, you'll always remember the good memories, or like, try and hang on to the good memories, not the bad memories. But I think that the bad memories are almost more like core memories, and I think that they're more valuable memories. Like they have more impact. Like
Yeah.
I do not think that I've ever witnessed with my own two eyes anything more powerful than watching her parents say goodbye to her on Christmas Day.
Oh my
Like
gosh. Hey, oh, that was, ooh, never again.
horrible,
Please never again, Lord.
horrible. It was just,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's coming all day long. It's coming. Like we knew it was coming a few days before it was coming, right? Like you just, there's that energy, right? Of like death is around the corner, and you just like, I just didn't anticipate having to watch parents and her brother specifically, like, ugh,
Yeah,
horrible.
for sure. But like it is, but like at the same time, like I know you felt like you knew Sarah like a few days before. I honestly, her whole entire journey, there was no narrative that I made up in my head that resulted in the way it resulted. Like none of the narratives that I made, like none of them. It was always, okay, it's going to be a fairy tale ending, and it's going to be, she's going to find her prince. She's going to have her babies. I don't know if they're fur babies. I don't know if they're human babies. I don't know if they're from her, they're from somebody else. I don't know what they're going to be. But like it was always a fairy tale ending. And so like even up until like that day, like I kid you not, I still like when Ken called me, I thought he was gonna say like, I just had a gut feeling that he was gonna be like, okay, like she's up and perky, or she like squeezed her hand and said I love you, or like she did something and like positive, and then it's like, nope, gather the troops, come now. Like there was no narrative, and that ended that way. But like when you said like what what better fairy tale for Nicole than Christmas Day going to be with her King and Lord Jesus, like that is the best fairy tale out of all of the fairy tales that I could have created for Nicole. Like I don't want that right now, but that's not my fairy tale.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like the second time she got diagnosed with cancer, I was in Mexico and I just remember mourning her death that day. And I remember like she was still alive, right? Like she was still alive and now we know she would like go into remission and then get diagnosed for a third time. But I remember doing the exact same thing with my grandma when she got diagnosed with leukemia and they said it was terminal. I remember mourning my grandma's death then and like not later after she had passed. And same thing with
Mm.
Nicole, like that second time she got diagnosed and she was texting all of us girls in the group chat and she just was like saying I love you and saying things that were like very goodbye-esque. I just was like, she's mentally
Mm-hmm.
ready to go. Whether she's not dying today or not dying from this cancer or she like will heal, like mentally I could tell at that point she was ready to go. And for me it was like that's when I started spiraling. Like that's when I spent the whole day in bed. I didn't get out of bed at all that day. I just cried and cried and cried because I was just mad. Like how dare. Um but yeah, that week of that week of that she passed, I texted Emily and I was like,
Hmm.
it's gonna happen on Christmas. I just have this morbid feeling. And it did.
Yeah.
And I think
I
we
swore
could
I
kind
wasn't
of
gonna
tell
cry at the end.
too. Her dad was so
Hmm.
good at updating everyone on what was going on. Like I think everyone
Oh
kind of
my
got the sense
goodness.
of, because I talked to her mom later on and she described like Nicole had some sort of infection that they could not find the source of. Like they could not figure out what it was. And so basically they just like threw the kitchen sink at her to figure out what would kill it off and whatever. But nothing was working. And then they couldn't find the source of it. So ultimately that's like what happened. But I think we could all tell just based on Mr. Agreeman's posts of what was going on that she was declining rapidly, like quicker than typical. And I will never forget calling him and talking to him and him being like, I don't think we have another 24 hours with Nicole. And
Mm.
oh, you know what, Jeannie, I'll never forget. Oh my God. I'll never forget like her when we were at the hospital with her and
The doctor
we had that
called.
conversation with her doctor. What's that?
The doctor called.
Yeah, and the doctor called and the doctor was really point blank, and you can probably describe this story better than I can, but very point blank to say like, hey, this is your plan. We have a plan A, B, and C, and ultimately, if we can't make plan C work, we're kind of out of options. And Nicole was always led to believe like we're so young, so there's just so many options for us here. But
And she just did that like thing, that like nod that she always did, like
yeah, exactly.
smiling and nodding.
And it was, you could see on her face it really just settling with her and her soul that like whatever is meant to be will be. And then there was another doctor that came in and she goes, oh, I don't know if you heard, but the cancer is back and these are my options. And the woman looked at her and she goes, Nicole, I myself am not promised tomorrow. No one in this room is promised tomorrow. And I just remember it being so profound because, of course, like, she's scared. We're all scared. But it was so comforting for someone to be like, this is the pits, but this is life for everyone. And you don't have to feel alone in that at all because it's so true. I think that brought her a little bit of comfort that day. And I thank God for that nurse.
Yeah. I remember the week of, Sarah had texted me, obviously, like she said, she texted, and like I had been keeping up to date with all of Ken's posts and stuff like that. And throughout the past year and a half, I would just text Nicole randomly, and sometimes I would get a response and sometimes I wouldn't. And a lot of the times when she responded, she'd be like, I'm so sorry, like I'm so tired and my phone is just blowing up. And I was like, I never want you to feel like you have to respond to me. I want you to feel my love to you. I don't need you to say anything back. This is just for you. But even though Sarah texted me that week and said that, I was like, no, this is not, like, in my head, I'm not even like thinking that that's reality. So they had said that she was sleeping and that she was in like a coma or sleeping, or I don't know exactly the terms that Ken used, but I texted her anyways. I was like, she's going to wake up in a few days and she's going to be able to read my text and she's going to know that I love her anyways. And then, sorry. And then obviously Christmas Eve, we kind of heard that things weren't going well. And so I just spent Christmas Eve laying on the couch with Tyler, just watching movies. And then obviously Christmas Day, we found out. And I got to be on FaceTime, which I just hated not being able to be there. But this like big storm came in. And Tyler was like, do you want to get in the car and go right now? Like drive through this snowstorm and be there? And I was like, first of all, like, we're not going to make it there in time anyways. Second of all, we shouldn't put our lives at risk in this massive snowstorm. Like, it wasn't just like a normal one. It was bad. And especially up where we are. And so I just got to be on FaceTime. And then after we finally got off the call and everybody left, Tyler was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to watch Tangled. And he was like, are you sure you can do that? And I was like, that's going to be the movie that I want to watch all the time now. He was like, are you sure you can put yourself through that? And I was like, it's not about putting myself through it. It's that I'm always going to remember her. And if that's the thing that I have to watch to like always remember her, then I'm going to. And so we watched Tangled. And it's just like, I've watched that movie probably like 4 times since Christmas Day. Just because it feels so like on par with who she is, and just like this innocent, sweet person who like wanted to go and do this sweet thing. And so I just like watch that movie all the time now.
I started Gilmore Girls over again that day. Something about those shows, like those wholesome, every girl loves them shows. It's like she's right there, like texting me. I'm pretty sure she was a Logan fan, so like whatever. This is the best.
So she had a little bit of bad judgment.
Terrible.
No, I swear I can feel her like hugging me when I watch it. Like that like squeeze that she did when she would hug you, like I feel it when I'm watching that movie. And so I just like want to watch it all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. I didn't know that. Yeah. All right, guys. Well,
Dang. I made it 47 minutes. 47 minutes and I just started crying.
I think I
I'm so
made
proud of
it
you.
minute 12, so
Well, we knew this was gonna happen for like obviously for this is just like it feels like just us talking, but there is gonna be people that listen to this. This is extremely fresh for all of us, and it's always gonna hit us in a way when we talk about it, but it just is really fresh. And doing this fundraiser, we decided to do it when it was fresh. Like I think that it was like intentional to do it so quickly, because a lot of people are like, how are you guys doing this and like talking about it so often? And I said, I made a video, and I don't know if I put this part in there, but I was like, Nicole's gonna live on forever in our lives. Like, she's always gonna be a part of our story, and we're always gonna talk about her. But this fundraiser is so that she lives on forever in everybody's lives, like that everybody gets to hear her story, and that her story changes somebody else's life too, because her story changed our lives immensely.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things too that it's
Absolutely.
like, you know, the things that we're experiencing, like there are millions and millions of people who are experiencing the same thing every day, all the time, right? And like when we meet other people and when we like introduce ourselves, we always introduce ourselves with like our name and our career and all this stuff. And like, especially us who are like really present online, right? You're seeing all these like successes and you're seeing all these wins, and like it feels like you like know what's going on in other people's lives, right? And it can feel super lonely when you know aren't exposed to this side of things. But I think that it's like on the other side, like nobody knows that all of this is like happening in other people's lives, right? And this like impacts everything. Like as all of us have gone through this, it impacts every facet of our lives, right? It impacts us emotionally, it impacts us mentally. Like all of this is just super, super heavy. And like when you look at Nicole's family, like her brother, like when I'm looking at my immediate family, I mean, it's extremely difficult to lose a friend. But I look at my brother, or like all of us have siblings, right? And the idea of like losing a sibling, losing a child, like just there are so many people that are going through having a family member like ripped out of their like core circle in this like really awful, ugly, like morbid way. And it's not something that's talked about a ton, right? It's like something that everybody is going through in one way, shape, or form, but nobody like talks about it. And so I feel like our friend group in particular, just because we've been surrounded by cancer specifically for these last couple of years, it's like forced all of us to like have a big reality check. Like I know for me, I'm just like looking at the way that Nicole handled that entire experience, looking at how absolutely certain she was in a higher power and that God was taking care of her. And like, you know, I've felt religious in several different forms, but always have experienced like the negative side of religion, right? Along with the positive side. And Nicole, there was no negative side. It was just like, you know, this is all for a greater good. This is all for a greater purpose. And I feel like for all of us outside of experiencing that disease, it's like makes you have the opposite reaction, right? You're like, how dare, or like, why? And I feel like everybody kind of feels that from an outside looking in. Um, and I don't want people to feel that way. Like I would love, you know, Nicole's story to be one of those that's like people look at it and they're like, if she can look death in the eyes and still feel at peace about it, still feel ready to go, still feel so sure that, you know, whoever is the higher power in this world is like definitely looking out for her, definitely like making sure that her story is exactly the way that it's supposed to be. I'm like why am I so scared? You know, like why is it so easy for me to get caught up in everything else besides that? So I don't know. I just like when we had this idea of a fundraiser, one, I think it's an amazing thing to like try and like amplify the voice of people who are going through these super hard times. But two, it's just like a good reminder for everyone who's not going through these hard times to be like, look, like when Nicole first got cancer, I remember one sentence that I said to her that she was like, I don't know why that made me feel better. It was, you got diagnosed with cancer first, but you're not the last, right? Like out of all of us, like all of us, the chances of all of us getting cancer are so high. So although it's like super fresh and super sore, it's like all of us are going to face some sort of version of that in our lives. And like, I do not feel prepared at all for it, right? But I want that support around me to like feel the way that Nicole did. So I don't know. I just hope this podcast like makes other people realize that they're not alone in what they're going through. That like, if you have pain from cancer, like there are a gazillion other people that feel that pain as well. I don't know. It's just the pits. It's just the pits, and people don't talk about it.
Yeah. So I'll pop this last one to Dale, and we can kind of wrap up because I know we've all been crying on here now, and I hate crying on camera. Dale, do you want to talk about LLS and the fundraiser and like what we're trying to accomplish with telling Nicole's story and working with the
Yeah,
LLS.
for sure. So those that don't know what LLS stand for, I don't think we've said it this whole
I'll
time,
put it
but
in the title. I'll put it in the title.
okay. It is the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And so it's a 10-week fundraiser. So think of it like a fundraising sprint. It started the end of February 23, and goes to May 4. The title of the fundraiser is Visionary of the Year. So what it is there's in West Michigan, there's 12 teams that are competing, and those 12 teams are ran by what they call a candidate, and that candidate forms the teams. And so what we're doing is unlike any of the other teams. So we are Nicole essentially is our like candidate, and but since they need to have somebody earthbound to be able to be the candidate, I am filling in her place, and we're doing everything we do, the fundraisers, the funds, whatever we do is in Nicole's honor. So we're making a point to every single publishing that's out, every single radio talk, every single news broadcast, article, whatever. Like everything is in Nicole's honor to just keep making her story be heard. So come on May 4, there's going to be a fun event, like a fun celebration, and we'll be able to find out which team is the team that raised the most funds. So on that day, we'll figure out who the visionary of the year is. So when we win, it'll be visionaries of the year in Nicole's honor. So our team will be able to go up and accept that title. So it'll be super awesome. But my main goal, at least, I think I can speak for a good chunk of us, is that if we hit different benchmarks, so if we hit the middle of somewhat of the middle of our fundraising goal, we get to have a study or program or portfolio, whatever you want to deem it, um, as in Nicole's honor. We get to name that. So I think that is just one of the most beautiful things and the driving force, at least for me, to be able to say, hey, I know a girl that just her name was on the study that cured cancer. Like, I think that would be so stinking awesome. So that's one of my driving forces. And yeah. And the best part, the thing that why I wanted to to just continue this fundraiser and bring it to you guys was they use 79, I believe it's 79 of all the funds that are raised, 78, 79. Don't quote me. I know it's high 70s. Um, is all high 70% of all the funds that are raised go back into the mission. So it's not like we're paying some rich Joe Schmo's paycheck and Porsche. We're fighting for this cause and trying to raise funds to be able to make this a cancer-free world, which to me is something that's so beautiful and so powerful and a driving force for me. So yeah, that's kind of what the fundraiser is in a brief synopsis. Even though it wasn't really brief, I talked really run-on
Same.
sentence. Same, in my nasally Midwestern
No, that's
voice.
perfect.
Did I tell you
So
guys
Also,
yeah,
about the plant sale that I'm doing? Have I talked about this yet?
No.
I think we talked about it in the meeting.
you mentioned it.
Okay, I mentioned it. I just want to plug for, I don't think anybody in Washington's really going to listen to this, but if you are, we're having a plant sale that a gal that I work with, she's done it in the past for a little girl who had passed away who was at the school that she worked at. And so she hasn't done it in a couple of years because this was many years ago, but she's reintroducing it for Nicole. And her and I met last week and we picked out all the plants that we're going to be selling, and it's like a pre order system. with like a 3-day pickup at a location.
Aw.
And there's one plant, and I don't have my list with me, but it's like a coleum or like a coley something. It's not a flowering plant. It's like this leafy pink and green and purple thing, but it's really cute. And I was like, anything with Coley or Nicole is on the list. So I'm
That's kind
excited
of
for that.
also fitting.
We're still working out the
It's
details.
kind of also fitting because those are her two favorite colors.
Green and pink, yeah.
So that's kind of cute.
Yeah. Yeah, so
That
that
is
will be
perfect.
happening.
Oh.
We're working out the details, but the pre-order will be ending in like April-ish, and then pickup will be like around Mother's Day. But the pre-order will already be in place before our event, May 4th. Anyway,
Nice.
So yeah, if anybody's in the Seattle, Tacoma area that listens to the podcast, that will be perfect. And I know we've talked a lot about Nicole's story on here and like our personal experiences with her, but Jeannie actually wrote a letter for our group that I have posted on my social media, but I will put it in the bio below so that you guys can read a little more in depth about Nicole's
Just
story.
want to throw it out there, much better writer than speaker, so.
Yeah, and I won't speak for everybody else, but
Oh.
we would read it, but I said this before, I can't get through it without losing it, and I already did that today. So I'm not going to do that again and read you guys the letter, but it's fantastic. Jeannie's a great writer, so you guys should check that out in the bio below this video or in the podcast link.
Yeah. And I think one thing we should plug here as well is if you are a business owner as well and you donate, I think, over $2,500 to the LLS fundraiser, you get representation throughout this fundraiser. So you can add your logo on a few things. You will show up at this big gala
Yeah.
that they're hosting on May 4th. We will all be in attendance, and I think you also get an invite to attend as well. Am I correct at 2,500?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's multiple. I have my laptop pulled up here. Um, there's so many different sponsorship opportunities, which is I think is so stinking cool. Sorry, that's probably a cleavage shot. You know, mom boobs. Um, excuse me. Um, yeah. So, okay, my computer's not working. Okay. But yeah, there's everything from $500 all the way up to like $50,000, whatever floats your boat. So the smaller amounts, the 5,000, the 500, 500, 750, 1,000, that amount you can get thrown into your logo and a blurb about you in the program write out in the digital program, so you get some marketing that way. But then there's the heroes table, which is for you can come $2,500. I believe you get a table and you get a yeah, you get a table and you get marketing, and then the 5,000 you get like if you donate 5,000 you get a table for 6 and you get marketing and you get shout outs on multiple different platforms, and then the perks just go up and up and up for each thing a increment that's
Beautiful.
donated.
So, any real estate investors specifically who are listening to this and need tax write offs for donations, we would love to be that for you. So
Yes.
please donate your pennies. We know that you all are
Amen to
trying to
that.
avoid giving your money to Uncle Sam and you'd rather give it to us anyway. So although we're not investing this in a property, we would love to invest it in something that is way more important than another property in your portfolio. So if you're interested in doing that and you want a nice little tax write-off and you want to help something that is really near and dear to all of our hearts, please reach out to us. Everything is going to be below this podcast in the bio, plus below it in the YouTube video. So you'll have all the links to find it there. But this is something that's super important to us. So we would love to see you at that gala as well. All of us will be there on the 4th, all dressed up to the nines all together. So if
oh, I
you
forgot about that.
are you coming, Chelsea, or no?
Oh yeah, I'll probably come. Just gotta figure out the details.
Fit it in your schedule.
Fair. But yeah, all of it will be in the bio below, and we would appreciate it. And if you end up coming to the gala, we'll see you there. You can come hang out with us in person and have a good time celebrating the life of someone that changed our lives. So, well, guys, we got through it.
Absolutely.
We have been avoiding this podcast for a minute, and we got through it. So thanks for listening. If you are listening still to us trudge through this super emotional period of our lives, we appreciate it. And we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.